This inspection's really long overdue. I was due to get back into these boxes about a week ago already, but we've been a little bit busy. We're almost back in full swing, back into beekeeping. We've been able to get around a bit more, and we've just got a lot of work that we need to get to, so I've not had the time to really continue with what we were doing here. But at the same time, I was quite happy with how we've left things. When we left off last time, we'd basically just moved a supersedure cell into the bottom of this box here, and we had a laying queen at the top. So this afternoon I'm going to be going through all of them very quickly. I don't know if I'll have time to put it all on the video here, but I'm going to be starting with this box because this is what we've been really running this experiment on, and to see if we can kind of have two queens coexisting in the same hive. And I also want to see if they continue to try and supersede the old queen at the top. So let's have a look at this colony, and we'll take it from there. If you can see, there's a couple of yellow particles in front of the entrances here. If you're wondering what that is, I've been feeding these little colonies some pollen patties just as a trial that I'm running on them. I'll do another video on feeding bees. I'm going to be doing that now for feeding bees for the winter, just to give you some tips on what I do and what I suggest, but that's going to be in a separate video. So yeah, if you're wondering what this is, I'll cover it in a separate video. But for now, let's get into these bees. Again, just start with a little bit of smoke, just so that they know we're coming. It's been getting quite cold lately. It's also one of the reasons I haven't got into these boxes properly. I've been putting it off this afternoon. It's just after 4 p.m. now. It's probably about 4:20, 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's still nice and warm, so I'm able to get into these boxes quickly. I'm not going to be taking too long in them because we don't want to keep them exposed too long. So what I'm going to do here is just a little bit of smoke on the top, but I'm going to basically just crack this box like we've done in the past, pull the whole queen excluder off with the top box so that we can inspect the bottom first, and then we'll inspect the top. It's got a bit of weight to it. We've got very few bees in the bottom, so I'm not too optimistic about that having a queen there. I'm going to go straight for one of the second frames. There's very few bees in the bottom here, so I don't think we've got a queen in here again. Now these combs are dry. There's absolutely nothing going on in here. And that cell again never hatched. You can see it here already. Oh, it did hatch. Okay, it did hatch, but there's no queen in here. So something's happened to her again as well. And what I notice here, there's a little bit of old brood. This brood never hatched here, and that tells me that the brood nest is just at the top. These bees never came down enough to support that brood, so the cluster of bees keeping the warmth of the hive stayed in the top chamber where the queen was, and I think that could be why we're losing the queen in the bottom here. The swarm just wasn't strong enough to support a longer brood nest. So I'm not going to go much further in here because you can see there's really hardly any bees in here, and the combs are quite dry, so they're not even occupying this bottom chamber here at all. So I'm going to just put this back. Let's just have a look at the top. I might actually just drop this down to being one box now. So I'm going to just inspect this one right where it is, so that we can maybe just move this one off, and we might just make this just one chamber again. But let's see if they're still trying to supersede this queen. Why did you sting me? Not very nice. They're really nice and strong at the top though. You can see there's the pollen patty, as I say, that I have been trying out. And they're really on top of this patty, so it's quite nice to see. Just want to give them some smoke. Let's have a look at these frames. Put that over there for now. I really think this little colony just isn't strong enough to support the extra brood area that I was trying to expect of them, because they're nicely up here. I mean, they're on this frame as well, they're on the edges, so they're a good 5 frames of bees, but they're not building anymore, they're not expanding. I think they're starting to prepare for a winter here, and that's the reason why they didn't go down. They didn't want to cover that that brood frame that I put at the bottom. I just want to check now, see how our queen's doing in here, see if I spot her, and then also to see her brood pattern. It's looking good to me. I don't see any supersedure cells on here. The brood pattern's looking really good. This is pretty much emerged brood all around here, and the queens refill it up with eggs. What I've pointed out in the past, and I'm going to just give them some smoke here and you'll see again, but when you're looking at where your brood nest expands to, just want these bees to move, you'll see as soon as you move your bees on your frame, the ones where their heads are in the cells, you can see they're kind of in a circle here, and that shows you where your nectar line sits. So you know that all these cells inside, if the bees don't have their heads in them and they appear to be empty, that's generally got larvae or eggs in. And if you have a quick look in, if your eyes are good, you can see the eggs, you can see the larvae, and it's one of the first signs I look for often when I look down in a hive as well, as I can see the brood pattern just by where the bees are sitting with their heads in the cells, engorging nectar as you've smoked them. So that's looking really nice. That's a solid brood. This queen is laying very nicely now. It's almost like we threatened to replace her and she started laying. Look at that brood pattern, man. That's beautiful. That's what you want to see. This queen is now established. She's rectified her brood pattern, and the bees seem to be quite content, quite happy with her laying. But if you do note, they're not stretching this brood nest. The brood, the cap brood stops, and right next to it is nectar and pollen. So that's normally a sign to me that they're starting to close up shop for winter. But it's still a lovely brood that's been reared through this. On this side though, it's a little bit of the opposite. They are stretching the brood nest a little bit here, so that's quite nice to see still. So this queen is actively laying very well. I haven't seen her yet. She might still be on the next frame here. Let's see if we can find her quickly. But that's so far, that's 2 good frames of brood. Really happy to see that. Yeah, this side's honey, and here's our queen. I jabber my thumb, sits our queen. She's really a lovely queen. I'm really glad that they finally agree with me that she's worth keeping. Yeah, and this is a solid pollen frame, a little bit of cap brood there in the middle. That is really nice to see. These bees have got such good stores. This frame is heavy. They've got a beautiful honey crown. When I look at a frame, if you're not familiar for what you're looking for, these little cells in here with the orange in them, that's pollen. This is cap brood here, and then this is your honey crown at the top. So these bees have got really good food for going into the winter now. My queen is still here. I make sure I can see her before I slip the frame back in, and then in it goes. I'm not going to pull that last frame. I can see that they're just starting on that foundation. So these bees I'm going to leave just as they are. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to close them down to 1 box now. I'm going to remove this other box, and I'm going to put this box on the floor and make them just 1 box again, because we don't have a second queen in here, and we do not have the bees even building down on the bottom there. So there's no need to give them that space. These bees are so nice this afternoon. They're not that runny. It's lovely working bees when they're like this. They certainly have chewed into this patty. Just going to tear some of this off. Give them a bit of assistance here, otherwise they have to carry all that out the front door.
that can stay. They'll pull that out. It's not going to be a problem. They'll get that out. Okay, I don't want to lose too many more bees here now, so let's just switch this around. Just going to pull that box off. You can see they're dropping a lot of this pollen patty. They're just dropping down and they're slowly working it out of this entrance. Just going to knock that out. Put them back here. And I'm going to shift this box off of the queen excluder now, straight over onto here. And these guys, I don't want to lose them before dark now, so let's try and get them in the hive. Some of them missed the box. They'll be alright. Scoop them up, they'll come and sit on the side of the box, and I'll scoop them in shortly. I'm going to go into some of the other boxes now. I'll come back and scoop them in. These bees will be fine, they'll walk up in the entrance. It's just these that I knocked off the side here that I'll come and chuck back in just now. Great, that's looking good. On to the next one. These two little boxes here, I don't know if you can remember the whole sequence. I know they all look the same, so I'm just going to quickly explain to you again. These two little boxes, right in one of the first videos, I transfer this swarm or this colony out of a 10 frame box into this little 5 frame box, and I've given them a new queen and I let them just start to develop in here. I have since checked them. I have peeked in here now and then, and they've started to develop quite a nice little brood pattern. They've grown quite nicely in here. And then this one on this side, it was just a small little cluster of bees. I think on the last video that I did, I wasn't even sure of the brood pattern yet. I wasn't quite happy with what I saw, whether I had a drone layer or not, whether it was just a young queen. So I'm going to be having a look at this one again today. But because this was such a small swarm, they were just sitting along here on one frame basically. I might unite these two swarms now. There are 2 queens, so again we're going to end up with basically 2 queens in a hive. But I'm going to be using a queen excluder and a sheet of newspaper if I do decide to go ahead with that. I'm just going to inspect them quickly first. I want to assess them, and then I'll see how I feel about it. And if I am going to combine them, I thought I'll do this video quickly to show you how I combine swarms when I need to, using the newspaper method. Let's have a look. I've reduced these entrances. These guys have only really got a small little entrance on the side here, so that just to prevent robbing. They've really had a bit of a hard time with robbing. Just a little bit of smoke, just so they know we're coming. Yeah, they're actually growing quite nicely. It's looking really nice, and again I put a little bit of patty on them. As I say, I'm just experimenting with these patties at the moment. Let's just have a quick look here. I just want to have a look at what the brood looks like and how the queen's laying, and then I'll assess it from there. I can already see quite well in here, but I'll lift it up just for the sake of the camera. I am careful opening bees like this in winter. I know a lot of guys recommend that you don't, and so I'm just cautious about it. I choose my timing wisely, and that's why I haven't opened them much the last couple of days, because it has been colder in the afternoons and the evenings have been cold. But I've just got a bit of a chance today. The weather's really playing along, and so I'm just making the most of it. And I really don't expose these swarms too long. I know what I'm looking for, and once I see it, I go on. There's a beautiful little brood pattern. There's our queen. She's not a very big queen. I think I've pointed it out in the past, but there she is in the middle of the frame. So it's quite a dark queen as well, but she's got a nice sized brood pattern there now, compared to that tiny little bunch that we had the last time. And I do still see the odd cell here that I'm suspicious is a drone larva. I'm looking over the bees now to see what I see with the colors of the bees and just in general, so that I know what's going on in the swarm. There goes our queen, to make sure I don't lose her. But I think it's safe to say that this queen is doing alright. Single eggs in a cell, and she's got a fairly good brood pattern there. I think she's just lacking a bit of bees and a bit of bee support, so we're going to try and give her that if we can unite these two swarms. Just want to find her again, but they've got a nice ring of nectar around the brood nest. Not a lot of pollen, but I have chucked this patty on them, so they're doing alright. I'm actually quite impressed. They would probably start to build up quite well on their own. I just want to find our queen again. She ran around the corner of this frame. If I look away, there we go. Look away and then you look again and you see her. Here she is. So I'm just going to put her back in while I see where she is. I'm not even going to pull this last frame here. I can see they've, well, let me pull it. I'll show you what I see. They've basically just drawn that little patch of foundation. There's a bit of brood in there too, so I'm quite happy to see that she's laying on there as well. I don't see new eggs in there after they've hatched. So they've hatched that brood and I don't see new eggs. But again, the amount of bees in here, she's obviously not going to lay more than they can support. So that's pretty much the size, and I can imagine at night when it gets cold, they probably cluster in. If I look at the size of that little brood nest, they probably, let me move this out the way, they're probably clustering in a small little circle like that. So that's why you only end up with a small little brood pattern. So anyway, I'm going to unite these bees, I think, with this little swarm. I do see my camera wants to die there too, so hopefully it'll hang out on us. If not, I will do the joining of them another day. I'm going to just get another frame for this box as well, just so that we complete this box, and I'll close them up. Just putting an extra frame in there because if I do unite them and I end up neglecting to check them for a couple of weeks, then I don't want to end up with that, end up with them building burr comb off the side there. Alright, let's have a look at this one quickly. So I've got the got this queen excluded here in case we do unite them, then I can do it now quickly if I do decide to go that route. Yeah, you see these are definitely stronger. These are looking good. They're not that strong though. They're also missing a frame. I see I've been getting quite bad with that. They obviously weren't strong enough, so I wasn't nervous about them building there. But they've developed it. It's also only about a circle like this when I look from the top. So I'm going to just open them up and have a look. Let's put that on the lid. Don't want to lose those bees now. It's just before dark and they're going to battle if they spend the night out. Let's just have a quick look here. So yeah, I don't think they're quite strong enough, to be honest, to unite that one with. They might be better off being united with the other one. So I'm not going to do that video now then. I will do the uniting at a later stage. This little piece that they're building here, there's nothing to be concerned about. It's just a little piece of burr comb, and they've actually got a bit of brood on it. I see a larva hatching there, a little bee coming out, so that's fine. This queen's got a really nice little brood pattern though. That's nice to see, but you can pretty much see when I look down the tops of the frames, I can see where the white is, and that's where I know that they're covering, and they're not even covering half the frames. They're not building a lot new wax. You'll see on this frame here now where they're building and where their cluster is. They're pretty much clustering here in the winter evenings now, and I don't really want to split that. So there's pretty much their circle, and you can see how they've got a honey crown that they almost ring the brood with, and they do that to insulate the brood and to keep it at the right temperature. So I'm not going to disturb these girls much more. Yeah, they're looking nice. It's not the neatest of brood patterns, but I certainly won't complain for the amount of brood I see in here. So they're also trying to support a lot of brood that this queen is trying to stretch out. I mean, she's stretching this brood nest as far as she can go and as much as they can keep warm at night. So yeah, I mean, there's brood on this side. I mean, this side is against the edge of the box, so if they're doing that, I'm really impressed with them, eh? They're actually looking really nice. So I'm going to move this frame over now And the new frame that I drop in, I'm going to drop in on that side with a new sheet of wax on, and then hopefully they'll be able to build. So I'm just going to go and fetch another frame and I'll drop it in here. I've just realized as I've come here now that this box, I've got one of the frames in this box that I think is wider than the others. I remember trying to get a frame in here the last time, now that I think of it, and these shoulders here on this side are just too tight. It just won't go. So I have a feeling one of these frames, I'm just going to try and break the shoulder off then. This is why I really despise exchanging frames with beekeepers when they have these home built frames. It's a pet frustration of mine. You can see the disruption it causes you, and this is, I can see this was a homemade frame. Somebody decided they're going to build, and then I sit with these problems at the end of the day. So right, I've managed to chip away there. Let's see if it goes in now, because I really want to get another frame in here for these bees to go onto. It's such a tight fit. That's going to only cause me headaches as well going forward, but it's fine. At least I've got a fifth frame in there. My bee space here is a bit off, but it's not the end of the world. At least I've got another frame for these bees to go onto. And you would have seen that the frame that I put in there actually had one side drawn out already, so these bees can just go straight onto it. So that's going to help them out as well. I'm not going to unite these two swarms now. The swarm is also not really strong enough. In fact, probably these two swarms would benefit from being united with two stronger swarms, which I might end up doing at a late stage. But let's just close them up. Get Patsy back on. So that pretty much concludes what I've been doing here over the lockdown, and as I kind of expected in the beginning, our lockdown's been extended, and now we're on to stages and levels and all those fun things. So I'll be continuing with some videos. It's not necessarily going to be on these hives. I might end up moving these hives off to a winter site in the next couple of weeks. I'll see what happens. I might still do one or two videos here, but there's nothing really more to show you guys on these bees. So I'll be doing a video or two on feeding and preparing bees for winter, just a couple of things that I do on hives that do stay on fixed sites over the winter, and then I'll be doing a couple of videos out on sites as we go on through the season. But thanks for watching again, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Be blessed. Cheers.